Hello and welcome to Wisdom Wednesday. My name is Robin Finney. I'm your Oracle, Intuitive, and Authenticity Experience Guide. And I'm so excited to have back with us today my dear friend, astrologer and spiritual advisor, Eileen Mello. Welcome, Eileen.
Hi, thanks for having me back.
Yay! So today, for those of you who follow the moon cycles, today is a full moon in Aries. And so I brought in Eileen to give us some more information about this because this is her wheelhouse. And then we'll tune in and pull a card for us from the Archetypes Guidebook, because I find that the archetypes pair really well with astrology. So Eileen, I'm going to toss it over to you.
Yeah. So hi, everyone. Hope you're having a great day. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Eileen Mello. Call myself the Mello Astrologer. And I have been a practicing astrologer for several years now. I'm a second generation evolutionary astrologer. So when I look at a person's horoscope or birth chart, I'm specifically looking at their evolution, their soul's evolutionary cycle. So as Robin said today, we have a full moon and it is in the sign of Aries. For those of you who follow astrology, the full moon is always in opposition to the sun, of course, but it is in opposition to the sign that the sun is in. So currently the sun is in Libra, and so the opposing sign is Aries. And this is, it's important to know or to be in tune with the oppositions, because what we're looking at is kind of like a tug of war in terms of energy. So Libra is very concerned with interpersonal relationships, harmony within relationships, balance, and generally like giving to others. And Aries is the opposite. It is very
selfish, right?
Aries is I consider it the most selfish sign of the zodiac. It's a fire sign, whereas Libra is an air sign. Libra is very mental and Aries is very instinctual. So where Libra has the ability to be objective and balanced, Aries is fiery and dynamic and angry. You know, Aries is the Greek god of war, or Roman, I always mix them up, but the god of war. So Aries is very concerned, like the mantra is I am. It's very concerned with itself and what it wants and what it needs. And so under this full moon, we're getting a balance of what do we need to bring into balance and how do you meet your own needs, right? How do you receive? That's the Libra energies, not so good at receiving. It's very good at giving, whereas Aries is very good at receiving because it wants everybody to give to it, right? It's not so good at giving. So we're looking at this archetypal opposition and balance right now with the full moon.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that description because it is a really great time to tune inward and give back to ourselves and be selfish in that way.
Yes, I like that you said that, Robin, because the fire signs, which are Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, are the more, they're self-oriented. And when you're looking at it from an evolutionary perspective, individuals who have a lot of fire in their charts or who are a fire sign, their evolutionary journey in this lifetime is about reorienting to the self and experiencing the self and learning about what it means to be an individual and to have sovereignty, versus like somebody who's born as a Libra or who has a lot of Libra energy like I do. Then we're constantly turning the focus is always outward. So we're learning about interpersonal relationships versus the self, right? It's a completely different dynamic. So we have a stereotype that being selfish is bad or wrong, but in the way that I'm describing it from the astrological perspective, it's necessary in terms of our karma and our evolutionary journey to learn about the self so that we can have the experience of individuality before the merging, right? And the dissolving back to source, etc. So what people are experiencing right now can be a lot of stress or awareness around what's not working in relationships. That's certainly what I've been hearing a lot of. And Robin, you just mentioned before we went live that a friend of yours just ended a relationship, right? So that's certainly happening. And alternatively, the opposite is happening where we're learning, like, who are we meant to be in relationship with? like what is working, right? So basically that the reflection of the full moon, it's so bright, it illuminates. So we're having our relationship dynamics illuminated, and that's our relationship to ourselves and our relationship to others. So the full moon allows us to see like, where am I not getting what I need? Like you said, that self-oriented awareness, and where am I maybe not participating in my relationships in a way that is effective, right? So we're getting both of those. And right now, the planet Mars is in the sign of Libra, which is significant because the sun is also in Libra. So it's like a double dose of this Libran energy. Mars does not like to be in Libra, because Libra is the sign of cooperation, and Mars is the sign of I want what I want when I want it, give it to me now. And if you don't, I always say this, if I don't get what I want, I'm gonna throw a temper tantrum. It's gonna be righteous, that's Aries. So when Aries is in Libra, it's like, it's the diplomat, it's the warrior trying to be a diplomat, putting on the suit and going to have these conversations that it doesn't typically want to have. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that description. And I'm curious, so if you can kind of share a little bit, because we tend to, I don't know, like my dreams have been a little haywire the past, I mean, recently, but the past couple nights, especially with the energy that we're stepping into. And there's also this kind of like the cyclical part where 6 months ago when Aries was in the new moon was in Aries, and now it's kind of completing that cycle. And so I've been looking back and reflecting over like relationships and kind of where I've grown in that area, and kind of like you said, still shining that light on where I still need to step up. And it's like been really cool to look back over the last 6 months and see like, oh, I've actually been really proactive about being mindful about boundaries and speaking up and using my voice. Whereas like 6 months ago, I was in my people pleasing mode and not necessarily doing that. So I'd love to hear some insights that you may have around the full moon, new moon, and kind of what that looks like in terms of
like wrapping up the cycles, as you
Yeah.
mentioned. Absolutely. And you kind of hit the nail on the head, Robin. You did a really good job of actually describing
I've been listening to you a lot.
is like. Yeah. And we can all do that. We can all reflect on what was happening back in April when the new moon was in Aries. So I explained how the full moon, the sign that the moon is in opposition to the sun. And with the new moon, it's in the same sign as the sun. So when the sun was in Aries, we had the new moon in Aries. And so like you're saying, it's almost like a wrapping up or a completion of that cycle of energy. So this is the benefit of astrology, is actually the reflection. I find it almost more beneficial to reflect than it is to project, to know, oh, there's a full moon coming, what's going to happen? Because the ego just likes to tell stories, and we get into this kind of like fantasy of what could happen, especially with a Libra Aries, because it's all about relationships, right? So you could have some fear around it, or you could be romanticizing it. But when you look back on, oh yeah, what did occur in the last 6 months around these themes of relationship and having better boundaries, or learning. I don't know that better boundaries that was your personal thing.
That was my personal,
but that's not necessarily well, no, that is a good word, because Libra is very much a pushover. And Mars in Libra is very much a pushover, because Libra wants to please everybody. Yeah. So it does make sense that boundaries, Aries is much better at maintaining a boundary than the Libran archetype would be. So what I would advise anybody watching is to think back to what was occurring in their life then, and see how it's wrapping up now, or how you maybe are just in a new chapter of that energetic dynamic, because that's typically how we roll, right? It's not really like you're you could be wrapping it up, but it's more like the chapter itself is concluding.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then with that, like the full moon itself, like how long will we be in that?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. So the full moon the moon changes signs every 2.5 days. So we're actually getting ready for I'm in California, and I want to look, so I'm not telling viewers wrong. Yeah, so the moon right now it's very close to moving into Taurus. It will do that in the next few hours, move into the sign of Taurus. So for the last 2.5 days, it's been in the sign of Aries. And with the full moon, you can even see it, right? You can look up at the sky and see like, oh, the moon is full, even if it's not what we call exact in opposition to the sun. So we have about a 2.5 day period where we're feeling this energy really strongly, and we can work with this energy. It's not to say that because the moon is moving into Taurus, you can't work with this energy, because it's archetypal. So we're learning about, yes, we're feeling the energy. Absolutely, 100% we're feeling the energy, but we're also learning, what does that mean for my like psycho-spiritual well-being, right? So that doesn't end just because the moon changes signs, and the moon moves so fast that it's going to be in the sign of Aries again in a month anyway. So whereas like the new moon, so we have the full moon, which is 2.5 days. The new moon, when it comes, we call it conjunct, when it's right next to the sun, that's only a few hours. So the new moon energy, we feel much more briefly than we do the full moon energy. Okay, the potency of it.
Yeah. That's all so fascinating. And I want to invite you all, like, if you're like on the edge of your seat and you're like, oh, this is different than what I see out there with like mainstream and everything, or I want to know more, I'm curious. And I really invite you to schedule a personal consultation with Eileen, and she'll pull your chart and actually go through it way more in depth. And it's super beneficial, because I've been learning little nuggets the more I get to know you and have that reflection with myself. And so it's super, super helpful in that way.
Yeah. And the benefit, as you're saying, Robin, to having a consultation is that, for example, like the full moon is going through my 8th house, which is a water house. So I've been feeling really emotional and kind of like a little bit anxious. Whereas I was talking to a friend this morning, he has the full moon transiting his 1st house, which is a dynamic fire house. It feels good. It's like, yeah, like I like this energy. And so this is where everybody feels it differently based on your unique astrology. So there are some things that are universal. We're talking about universal archetypes. We all know what it means to be in relationship to ourselves, to others, but then we're going to be experiencing these cycles differently. So that's why you could read something in pop culture astrology and say, that's not really what I'm experiencing. And then you talk to a friend and they are experiencing what you read, because it's activating a different area of their life. So that's really the benefit, one of the many benefits of having a personal consultation, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. That makes sense. So yeah, I recommend, I'll put the link in the description and comments so everybody can do that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so we'll tune in. We're going to pull a card from the archetypes, and actually just popped out. So this card will support us. I like what you said before about the psycho-spiritual. I don't remember exactly how you phrased it, but that's kind of what I was channeling. I was like, what will support us for right now with what's moving and everything. And so the card that came up, the archetype, is the Maiden. And I'll read that, and then I would love to, we can reflect on that and see. Love to have some feedback for you on how that shows up with the energies. So the Maiden, also known as the Virgin, the Princess, the Innocent. The Maiden archetype is the epitome of innocent arousal, naive sensuality, and precarious purity. She is compelling and addictive because of her flawless and youthful glow. She's the first archetype in the trifecta of Maiden, Mother, Crone, and rightfully so, because she has so much to learn. The Maiden is perfectly positioned for trouble to come her way and subject her to a challenge that leads to the next phase of womanhood. She must grow up, yet hesitates at the threshold, enamored by the charms of youth. The Maiden represents the side of us that is riveted and curious, drawn to shadowy forests, dark nights, and taking just one taste of poisonous fruit. Her magic is edgy and includes both shame and delight. Let yourself fall down the rabbit hole, young one. And when in light, curious, enchanting, sensual, full of vitality, when dark, pretends, projects, denies, fantasizes. And moving from the Maiden to the Mother is challenging, often leaving unresolved tensions between the two archetypes for years, if not a lifetime. So it's kind of like a child leaving its mother, leaving the nest. And then the question to reflect on is, do you long to be rescued by another or receive a kiss that brings you back to life? Be wary of waiting for a prince. Break the spell of your own life.
Well, the ending is perfect for the Aries Libra. The whole time you were reading, I was like, this is the Virgo archetype. We're under a Libra sun. Where are we going to go with this? Read that last part again, Robin.
Yeah, it says, do you long to be rescued by another or receive a kiss that brings you back to life? Be weary of waiting for a prince. Break the spell of your own life.
Break the spell of your own life. I love that. So you're looking for my feedback as to how this applies to the...
Yeah, just like I was tuning in from the realm of like the energies that we're picking up on. And I think it like ties a bow beautifully on what you were saying behind like the Libra energy and being the kind of being the one that gives and wants to be rescued in a way. And then Aries is like, no, focus on me. I got to focus on myself. And I think that last statement is really reminding us to tune into ourselves and break the spell of your own life. Like, don't rely on others to bring that love and attention to you. Feel it like,
yeah. What is the balance? Because that's what Libra is. So Libra, the ruling planet of Libra is Venus. So we're looking at, and the ruling planet of Aries is Mars, and they are the cosmic lovers, right? So in the mythology, Venus and Mars are passionately in love with one another. And Venus is married to somebody that she doesn't love and is also not attracted to. And so she's having these affairs with Mars, right, in the mythology, but they're sincerely in love with each other. And this dynamic, this push and pull dynamic of where are we giving too much and not receiving? And where are we fantasizing and what, as you're saying, this egoic story that we tell? But the reality is relationships are one of the most important aspects of our lives. And so it really is, and we forget that first and foremost, we're in relationship to ourselves. And most of us, we're all under, I had a spiritual teacher who called it the Walt Disney myth.
Yeah.
The Walt Disney syndrome.
That's
what it was. And so we are, even those of us who are on a spiritual path, we get lost in that fantasy of the ideal romance. And that's what Venus and Mars represent for us. But it is a fantasy. No matter how much you love an individual, they're still a human, right? So I feel like I'm going off a little bit. I'm veering sideways from what you were trying to get at, Robin.
No, but I think that's an important, I think that's an important way to tie it up. And also I think the innocence, like this card also is speaking to the innocence of like the archetype of the maiden and kind of being tender with that during this time and this week. And I think with full moons, especially the energy, it's like there's a lot of energy moving. So that's all the more reason to take care, like go inward and take care of that relationship to yourself, and then have that magnify to the relationships in your life. But that's kind of like, even when I reflect over the last 6 months, the fantasy part, it's like recently I've had like these flashbacks to being back in Morocco with the man I was dating, and like, oh wait, where is this? Why is this coming up?
Yeah,
like, I'm stuck in that loop.
Stuck in the loop of the. It's a projection, and that's what Libra does. Is it's projecting onto the other, right? And so we have these ideas or fantasies that we project onto the other in hopes that, in a subconscious hope that that person is going to fulfill the fantasy, and they cannot because it's a fantasy. Right? But I just want to mention one other thing in terms of this full moon, and that is that it is an aspect to Pluto, the Lord of Death. That's what I call Pluto. It doesn't mean that you're going to have, it doesn't mean that somebody's going to literally physically die, but it is the karmic cleanser. It's like we tend to have a lot of pressure. This is a tense and challenging aspect. So it can feel as though there is a lot of pressure building or as though you are under a heavy burden. I've certainly felt that. I don't know, Robin, if you have felt that at all, but in terms of your interpersonal relationships with this energy, if you are in any kind of situation where you need to have a conversation with others, or if there's any sort of situation that needs to be confronted, I recommend that you wait a few days. First of all, when this energy isn't so challenging, and also to really, if you cannot wait a few days, to realize that you are feeling the energy, this like very tense buildup of energy, and other people are feeling it as well. So to bring more gentleness to the situation and more diplomacy, and try to be much more objective and open-minded, and I'm not saying don't trust how you feel, but also realize that how you're feeling is like the weather. It's going to change in a few days, and it won't be so fiery and intense, and then your perspective will change. And so if you're able to realize that when you're coming into any kind of situation that is challenging, it will be to your benefit.
Yeah. And I think that's a beautiful way to like tie a bow on this conversation, is to be gentle with yourself. And if you do feel that impulse, like one of the things I was seeing was like, don't necessarily act on the impulse right now, but maybe be patient with it. And you can even communicate and say, like, if you do need to have a conversation with someone, you can communicate and say like, hey, I would love to talk to you about this. And right, I need a few days or something.
Totally. 100%. 100%. Yeah. Embody that Aries. I need what I need.
Yeah.
Energy. Tell people what you want and need. Yeah. It's very difficult for the Libra energy, which, Libra being ruled by Venus is the feminine archetype. So us ladies often have a difficult time stating what we need. Men too, of course, is not specific to women, but I find with my clients that we definitely have a little bit harder of a time just stating what we need, because we're often judged for it, and we judge ourselves for it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's where like the maiden, that ties in with the maiden and like the innocence of the maiden, and the maiden not quite being ready to speak up and say like they're curious and they're innocent and new. And so it's like a child kind of going
100%.
out and like, oh,
yeah,
okay, be gentle.
Yeah. Well said, Robin.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. And if you found this conversation beneficial, drop in the comments and let us know what's showing up for you, what you're feeling. And I invite you to schedule a consultation with Eileen. And also just to let you know, if you're interested in doing a deep clarity session, right now I'm offering buy one, get one through Friday. So you can book on my website, and I'll honor 2 for 1 for that. So hope everybody has a wonderful Wednesday. Take care of yourself. Be selfish with yourself right now. And yeah, thank you, Eileen, for tuning in.
Thank you. Yeah. Have a great day, everyone.
Take care.